Alright, so welcome to this new video on the channel here, and as I have said in my previous video where I was talking about my wipe highlights, or was showcasing my wipe highlights so far and some cool moments, I wanted to make a video about the meta guns this wipe. And for that, I want to start off with talking about the sights. And in this video, I will be using different red dots, hollows, and long-range optics. Being my favorite red dot is the Wilcox, the Boss Wilcox red dot. It just has a pretty good needle precise dot. That's what I like about it really much. But there's a lot of hollows that you can use as well, like the XPS3, the UH1, the HCO, and whatever hollow you like, honestly. Like, they're all pretty good. Just one thing about the HCO, this side shoots low. I will show you that in a second as well. When it comes to the longer ranges, I prefer the Tango. The 1X is really nice, and I also like the longer range scope. But the Voodoo, the Tech 30, and all the other longer range scopes are pretty nice as well. I just prefer the Tango this wipe. Yeah. One thing you have to know when talking about meta this wipe though, is this what I'm showing right here. If you use a canted sight, you will reduce your thorax hitbox, as showcased by Erin Marine in this tweet here. If you use a normal gun, or like holding a gun normally, you will have like this red part, which is your thorax hitbox, and the green hitbox being the upper arm, which is not penetrable anymore, so it will kind of act like a shield to your body. And if you use a canted sight, as you can see, you will reduce your thorax hitbox a bit, making you survive more encounters most likely. So whenever you're building guns, keep that in mind. You can just put a canted sight on it, and like, I don't really like the PK06. I don't know why I put the PK06 on here. You can use like a delta point or something like that. It's probably more clean and more fun to use. But yeah, keep that in mind when building your guns. Canted sights will reduce your thorax hitbox a bit. So, for the first part of the video, I will be talking about the close range guns. And my favorite weapon for close range is probably the MP7. This is my build for it. You can use a black MP7, it just can't take a foregrip on it, but it might be a bit cheaper because of that. And yeah, MP7, really nice weapon. That's the Wilcox red dot as well. As you can see, it has a small dot, which is needle precise. That's what I like about it the most. Yeah. As you can see, that's me standing up. The recoil is basically non-existent, and that's a really good weapon. You just have to buy the ammo and restock, otherwise it will be sold out. Like, FMJ gets sold out pretty fast. As you can see, it's sold out right now. Moving on to the next weapon, being the AS-VAL. That's my build for it. If you want to buy this part, don't buy the rotor for 77k. All you want to do is go to barter and buy a milk and barter for this, like the buffer tube where you put the stock on. MP7, really nice weapon to use. I like it a lot this wipe. As you can see with the Wilcox sight again, that's me standing up controlling the recoil. It's not that hard to control, honestly. And yeah, you will see one problem the gun has right now. If you spray, it will jam on the second mag. That's because the weapon overheats pretty fast, and if you get pushed by multiple teams, keep that in mind. Your weapon will jam if you full auto a lot, and yeah, that's my take on the AS-VAL. It's a really good gun still though. But if you want to buy ammo, once again, you have one problem. If you want to buy SP6, you have to complete capturing outposts, and the second best ammo after that that you can buy is SPP, which sells out pretty fast as well. My tip on that is craft PAP 9 whenever you can. That bullet is pretty good as well, but you have to be able to craft it, of course. Moving on to the next weapon in the close quarters section is the Vector, the ACP Vector. This weapon is really good as well, coming with a really high rate of fire and with really low recoil as well. Hold on, let me do this first. And yeah, that's me standing up. The recoil is pretty controllable. Really nice weapon as well to use. Why am I using the ACP Vector and not the 9mm Vector? Is only the bullets reasoning. Like, the 9mm Vector it has good ammo, but it's craft only. The AP-63 bullet is the second best bullet. You can buy that, but it has only 30 pen, while AP has 38 pen, being only one less than the best 9mm bullet. But you can buy AP from traders, making the ACP vector more lucrative for me, since I craft a lot of the better calibers like the AS-VAL 5.56. And stuff like that, so I don't really want to use my time crafting ammo when I can buy similar ammo for a slightly different gun. But yeah, that's my vector build. I really like this weapon as well. Pretty fun to use, pretty high rate of fire. Moving on to the next category is going to be 5.56. I didn't include 5.45 and 7.62 in this video, just for the reason being 5.45 has most of the time 650 fire rate, being pretty low, and the bullets just don't work for me. I don't know, it might be just me, I just don't like this caliber, this wipe. The bullets are kind of tickling people, I don't really like that. When it comes to 7.62, they kinda, like, when you compare these weapons to other weapons, the 5.56 caliber or even the 308 has, for me personally, a lot nicer recoil, and it's just not worth it to use these guns a lot. But my favorite 7.62 weapon this wipe is probably the RD. Putting a 50 drum in it, you can still melt people if you can craft BP. So the RD is kinda a nice weapon, but I'm not showcasing it here because I personally think it's not worth it to build it compared to, for example, 5.56. 5.56 has one issue though. If you want to use the good bullets, you have to craft them. 5.6A1 is not going to cut through level 5 or level 6 easily, so you kind of want to have 5.5A1 for that, and I'm crafting that non-stop, so if you want to use 5.56, you have to make sure so that you craft it. My favorite weapon in the 5.56 category is probably the AUG. It's kind of similar to the yellow MDR, just having a bit more fire rate. That's why I prefer the AUG right now. Yeah, as I said, this is my build for it. Not really much that you have to mod. That's also a big advantage of this weapon. You can build it pretty cheap, and as you can see, standing up, there's barely any recoil. AUG, really good weapon. Has been solid for me. I can just advise on using it. Then we move on to the M4s, being the short barrel M4 and the long barrel M4. I personally prefer the short barrel M4 right now, even though it has a lot higher MOA, so if you shoot on longer ranges, you obviously want to build like a longer barrel version of the gun. But the stats are really similar, like they're pretty much the same, but you have the advantage with the short barrel M4 since you don't get stuck on like door frames or like windows or stuff like that. That's why I personally prefer the short barrel M4. It has been really good for me. Just keep in mind that build is more for close range, and the longer barrel M4 is a more long range build, of course. But like, I'm going to showcase the recoil right now. The difference is like non-existent pretty much. That's the short barrel M4 first. Make sure that's on full auto. That's me standing up. Yeah, I mean, towards the end of the spray, the recoil gets more wild, but I haven't played in a while as well, so like the recoil is still pretty controllable, I would say. That's me overcompensating a bit, but most bullets hit the target, so yeah. And then we move on to the long barrel M4. If we use the long barrel M4, I don't know if it's just me, but actually the recoil feels kind of worse on the longer barrel M4. I don't know why. That's just my personal opinion. I prefer the short barrel version though. So like if I move up to this, like you can see my gun gets stuck. With the short barrel M4, you don't get stuck like immediately. Like as you can see, if I'm like at the screen, it's like kind of scuffed, and with the short barrel it happens as well, but the gun just doesn't go up immediately. You can still scope in. That's probably a bad example as well, but like the message is, if you get stuck on door frames, that will happen more likely if your gun is longer, of course. Moving on to the king of close range, probably, even though the gun is pretty long, is the HK. The HK has a higher fire rate, of course. That's why most people prefer the gun. That's my build for it. As you can see, Tango again. You can exchange that if you plan to just go like close quarters, of course, for any close range sight. But yeah, the HK is really solid as well. Not much to say here. Yeah, I'm undercompensating a bit again. But yeah, it has a higher rate of fire, so if you're on closer range, it's a pretty good weapon, and I really like it a lot. Before I move on to the 308 caliber, I wanted to show you the issue with the HCO sight real fast. If I'm like, oh, I didn't put the weapon in the slot, my bad. If I use the weapon here, I'm aiming at the middle right here. Like, as you can see, my dot is on the middle. I shot one bullet, and if we look where the bullet went right next to the 7. You probably can't see that really well, so I'm going to repeat it on the white part. If I'm aiming at this line where the numbers are and shoot once, the bullet will go way below. So if you use the HCO, keep that in mind. It's still a pretty clean scope, but yeah, you have to keep that in mind when using it, of course. Moving on to the last category for the video, being 308 caliber, which is probably the most OP caliber right now, or for the rest of wipe, since M80s, M62s, and M61s, once you can craft them, they will shred through everything pretty fast. And first of all, you usually want to use a full auto gun. No matter the scenario, full auto guns are superior. You can just melt people and you don't have to spam click on close range, which can be kind of fun. And especially if you do long range sniping, like on woods, lighthouse, all these kind of maps, or you just want to do sniping in general, then the semi-auto weapons, the DMRs, can be kind of fun as well. That's why I include them in the video here. Being the G28 with this build right here, the SR25 with this build right here, and the RSAS with this build right here. The G28 is probably my favorite weapon for close range encounters, just for the reason that, I don't know, it just feels the best in close range. It's the lightest gun. You only can have 20 rounders in this weapon, but it's still really nice. The ammo will kill people pretty fast, so you don't really have to worry about it too much. Unless you run into bigger squads, of course, then you have to remember that you're kind of limited. But yeah, my favorite weapon for close range is the G28, and the RSAS is my favorite weapon for longer ranges. As you can see in the recoil category, the RSAS is kind of the best, but the Ergo, of course, is getting tanked since the gun is very long. All these three weapons are kind of similar. I didn't include the M1A in here because the stats are way worse. The weapon is the heaviest. It feels kind of clunky this wipe. I don't know. It's swaying a lot. I just prefer these three guns. My most used being the SR25, just because it's like kind of an all-rounder. Like, I have been having no issues sniping people at range, but also on close range it feels really good. I don't know. It's just my favorite all-rounder, but if you want to use like the best close range weapon, the G28 has the most Ergo, and yeah, all these weapons are kind of similar. If you spam them a lot, you will know what I mean. Like, they're all basically the same, just being non-full auto, which is kind of one downside. So if you want to run like labs or something like that, I would recommend like the MDR or the SA58, which I'm going to showcase in a second, just because, like, I don't know, it's just full auto is just better in general. But if you want to have fun and just snipe people, you can use these DMRs as well. They're still pretty deadly, and if you're a really fast clicker and if you can like kill people with semi-auto guns, these are the three best guns. I didn't include the TX15 because 5.56 can be rough to use, especially on if you're on semi-auto, then 5.56 can be really hard to use. So I just prefer 308, and that's like, I think that's more the meta compared to like the TX15. When we come to the caliber of 308 and full auto guns, then we have to compare the SA58 and the DTMDR. In this video I'm showing you the SA58 with the 16-inch barrel. You can put the long barrel on as well. It will just tank your Ergo, and I think it only gives like 4 more recoil reduction, which is not that significant, and you lose like 14 Ergo, I think, which is kind of rough, to be honest. Also, your gun gets heavier, of course, which is kind of rough, especially if you want to use like 50 rounders, then you can probably on the 16-inch barrel, but on the long barrel you will just have like 0 Ergo, which is not really fun for me personally. But yeah, you have to decide for yourself. If you compare these two guns, we can see that the DTMDR has way higher Ergo, even with a scope equipped, than the SA58. The recoil stats are better on the MDR. That's probably because I use the canted grip. I don't know, the canted grip just feels good on the MDR. It feels good as well on the SA58, but I kind of want to have the ergo on the SA58. That's why I'm using the SE5 grip right now. But you can of course change that. Also, you could use like RK2, same as with the AS-VAL, for example. People complain that there's too much recoil on the AS-VAL. You could use an RK2. People have been saying that it feels better with an RK2. I'm just personally not the biggest fan of it. If let me showcase you this real quick first. That's the 308 MDR. That's me standing up as well. As I said, I haven't played in a while, as it shows. I'm undercompensating a lot. You have to watch out that the gun bounces like low pretty hard, so keep that in mind when shooting the weapon. Yeah, still really good though. 308 caliber, really deadly, so make sure to hit a couple of bullets and then you will be fine. That's the SA58 standing up as well. As you can see, most bullets actually hit the target, and yeah, these bullets are pretty deadly, so if you crouch down and reduce your recoil as well, you will have a deadly laser beam. And yeah, that's probably the two most meta weapons. The SA58 has a bit more fire rate, so it will probably, towards the end of the wipe, be more used, especially when people get their skills up as well, like weapon recoil, aim drills, and all that stuff. Then you will see probably more SA58s being used. The black MDR is cheaper to mod though, and it has like more ergo, and personally I just like bullpup weapons, that's why I prefer MDR as well. Like, it just feels cool to reload it. And yeah, that concludes it for all the weapons that I wanted to show in this video. There is some honorable mentions, especially like in the close range category, of course. Like the SR2 is really good in close range, and the MP9 as well. They're all pretty good. And probably the most like one of the weapons that I didn't show in here is like the spear. That's my build for it. Most people just can't buy it. It's like 600k on Flea. You could buy it, but at the same time you could buy an AUG for like 200k with all attachments, and you would be probably better off, unless you have a shit ton of money. Then you can buy the spear. I can recommend it. It's a really fun weapon to use. It doesn't have too much recoil, and the bullets, you can buy the best bullet from traders, making it really fun to use. Just the downside being you have to complete the Lightkeeper task for it, unless you have the money and you want to buy it for like 600k or 500k. Yeah, as you can see on Flea, it's really expensive. I didn't even unlock it yet. Pretty close though, but didn't unlock it yet. So yeah, that's my favorite builds for this wipe right now. Leave a comment in the comment section below what you think about my builds, if you have like any other builds that you use. Yeah, as I said, you could change up some stuff about the guns. You could use like different grips on certain weapons to have less recoil, more ergo, change some silencers for certain stats, change some stocks. I just think these are the best all-rounder weapons, like creating this balance between ergo and recoil. And yeah, that's just my opinion. I hope you liked the video, and see you in the next one.